Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Movie Skewer, where we roast bad movies. I'm the Fear Fan, and although you may know me best for my horror movie reviews, there's something that you may not know about me, and that is that I love comic books. Marvel, DC, Vertigo, IDW, all of them offer something unique, and all of them have series that I like, but the one thing that all my favorites have in common are that they all have great central characters. Now, although there are some characters that I've always liked, like Spider-Man or the Fantastic Four, there are others that I've only come to appreciate as I've grown older, and one of those is Captain America. Originally created by Joe Simon and Jack Kirby in the 1940s, Captain America was created as an embodiment of American ideals such as honesty, bravery, and the will to fight the good fight no matter what. Needless to say, he won't be exhibiting any of those traits in today's movie, 1990's Captain America. Created by 21st Century Films, a studio run by one of the two heads of the now-defunct Canon Pictures, Captain America is a monument to ineptitude that fails so hard it's taken more than 20 years for somebody to even try making another Captain America movie. Well, now that I've stalled long enough on backstory, it's time for us to dive in and roast this piece of shit. Our story, such as it is, starts out in Italy in 1936. A young boy is giving a piano recital for his family, and, because nobody expects the Inquisition, a group of fascist soldiers burst in through the windows. "We wish to attend your piano recital. You will pay!" Anyway, I guess the fascists aren't fans of Chopin, they seem more like a Wagner group to me, because they immediately execute his entire family, forcing him to watch. A short while later, the fascist commander invites a group of advisors to view an experiment attempting to create super soldiers.
Auf eine Art und Weise verändert durch eine Erfindung unserer Wissenschaft. Das Armetier, wie Sie sehen, werden es zweimal.
It also turned it into a shitty claymation effect, but we're pretty sure that won't happen in the human trials. He shows them into the chamber where the next experiment is to be performed, this time on the same child that they just kidnapped. Because why wouldn't you want to give the kid super strength and intelligence less than 12 hours after you slaughtered his whole family right in front of them? What could possibly go wrong with that? Anyway, since they're now experimenting on children, the lead scientist begins to suspect that Mussolini may not be such a great guy, and manages to escape while the experiment takes place. 7 years later, she's defected to the US, and they're about ready to test their new version of the serum on their first subject, Steve Rogers, a puny, frail, 6'2", 220-pound slab of muscle? Well, if I was spending millions of taxpayer dollars on an experimental super soldier serum, I'd probably want to hedge my bets as much as possible too. Although the guy does have polio, and I guess that counts for something. So he says goodbye to his girlfriend, who promises to wait for him, or, in her own words,
"I'll wait for you. Forever and ever and ever and ever."
And then they're off to the top secret military base for the procedure. Oh no, wait, never mind. They're just going to do it in the top secret basement of the local Greasy Spoon. Because how are they supposed to keep a secret if they're on a military base surrounded by hundreds of armed guards? Here, they only have to worry about the occasional civilian wandering in when they're looking for the bathroom. Anyway, the process apparently involves electrocuting the shit out of Steve, but he survives, and their special observer offers the doctor his congratulations.
Congratulations.
Damn, if only we'd set up a security checkpoint over by the carry-out counter, then maybe this whole tragedy would have been averted. Plus, I also love the way he seems to be telling her to talk to the hand when he shoots her, although in this case I guess it's more of a talk to the Hitler. So Steve takes out the assassin, but takes a few bullets in the process. Fortunately, the process has given him incredible healing abilities, and he's back on his feet in less than a day, and ready to take on the Nazis. Alright, he's back in action! That means we get to see him in costume for the first time. Okay, I'm officially less than stunned. Anyway, they tell the captain that the good doctor's secrets are lost forever since she took most of them to her grave, and he dives from the plane and makes it to the objective. There, he is immediately spotted and forced to take out a scale model of a guard tower. Gee, I guess painting him in bright primary colors wasn't exactly the best camouflage in the world, now was it? And speaking of the uniform, when we do finally get to see it, it's pretty obvious why he'd want to keep it hidden under his fatigues. Anyway, there's some poorly lit action, made worse by some confusing editing. But what we can see of what's going on seems to be fairly decent for its budget. Captain America makes his way through the guards, and we get our first look at the Red Skull, who actually looks pretty decent here. Although given how old the kid was when he was taken, and the fact that only 7 years have passed, that means that the Red Skull's probably only like 19 here. Well, whatever the case, it's time for round one. Let's kick some ass, Cap! I guess the process wasn't 100% effective. He still fights like he has polio. Anyway, the Red Skull ends the fight by poisoning Captain America, and he winds up strapped to an experimental rocket aimed at the White House. Cap grabs the skull before takeoff, forcing him to chop his own hand off. And thus ends what could be considered the good part of the movie. That's right, it gets worse from here. Anyway, we cut to Washington, D.C., where a little boy is taking photos of the White House. Alone. At night. Fortunately, before every child molester in the tri-state area can focus in on this kid, the rocket speeds into view. Yeah, kid. Wow. As in, wow, did he really wait to cross an entire fucking ocean before he tried to change the rocket's course? We get another wow moment when we see that not only did the rocket have enough fuel to cross the ocean to DC, but that it still had enough to get to Alaska. I don't think we have single-stage rockets even today that can do that, let alone in the 1940s. Anyway, the little photographer tells his chubby pal what happened, and together they try to figure out who was strapped to the rocket.
Just gotta figure out who it was. Did he have a trident? No, we didn't have a trident. Okay, so it wasn't submariner, and it couldn't have been Human Torch. It would have blown up the rocket before it could land.
The Human Torch wasn't invented until 1961. You fail at math, movie, moving on. Anyway, the years march onward, and we find that not only was the kid not put in an asylum for talking about flying blue men, but that he actually grew up to become both President of the United States and the bad guy from RoboCop. We learned that he's trying to get some rather heavy-duty environmental legislation passed, but that not everybody's very happy about it.
Well, sir, I want to live on a clean planet just as much as the next fella. You just simply can't expect us to cut back on our solid waste 90% in 6 months.
So you want to make a deal?
Yes, sir. Yes, of course I do, sir.
And of course it would be a general who was sent to tell him this because, as we all know, the military is Congress's errand boy. Let's look in on the Red Skull. So far he's been the only part of this movie that's halfway decent.
We don't kill him at all.
Oh no.
No. Assassination isn't worth the trouble.
Oh no! No.
Saints. Martyrs to the cause.
Okay, there are 2 fucking requirements for being called the Red Skull. The first is that you be red. The second is that you be a skull. You, sir, are neither. What the fuck do you call yourself these days? Fleshy pink head guy? I certainly hope so, because I know that that's what I'm going to be thinking every time I see you for the rest of this movie. So, Fleshy Pink Head Guy tells the Council of Slightly Pudgy Evil here that he has a better idea than killing the President. Instead, they'll just kidnap him and use a surgical brain implant to control him. Because Lord knows that the plan involving brain surgery on a man that's sure to receive a full physical checkup once he's returned is far simpler than just killing him. This plan is idiot-proof. Or is that proof of idiots? I'm not sure. Sometimes I get the two mixed up. Anyway, back in Alaska, they manage to find and thaw out Captain Popsicle's frozen carcass, and he promptly escapes into the Alaskan wilderness. Despite the complete lack of any evidence, the story winds up on the cover of every single newspaper on the planet. And how do the President and Fleshy Pink Head Guy react, you ask? Well, the artist formerly known as the Red Skull assumes that the captain somehow knows of his plans and has come back to stop him. Rather than send a proper hit squad after him, he tasks his daughter and her douchebag yuppie friends to do it. Meanwhile, the president recognizes the captain, and rather than sending a search and rescue squad after him, he sends his pudgy newspaper editor friend to do it. Good God, you can practically feel the stupid radiating off of this movie. Luckily, all of our characters can make up for it by virtue of the fact that they're apparently psychic. That's right, both the unusually fashionable hit squad and the editor are able to immediately find Captain America in the vast Canadian wilderness. After a brief chase sequence that mostly consists of Captain America running away from the assassins, the editor picks him up and off they go. Editor guy tries to tell him what year it is, but since he spots something that says Made in Japan, he assumes that the editor is just an Axis spy. Two things. 1. He already told you that the war is over. Don't you think that him having a futuristic device that was made in Japan supports what he's told you? Number 2. If this is still World War II, why would a German spy have a Japanese device that openly states where it was made in English? And to add insult to injury, this is what happens next.
Would you pull the car over, please? I think I'm going to be sick.
Captain, are you okay? You hold it. Don't leave me out here.
And no, you're not hallucinating. You really did just see Captain America steal an old man's truck and leave him to die in the wilderness. Captain America, preying on your sympathies so he can steal your shit. For America. And of course from there we are treated to the inevitable montage of Captain America making his way back home while encountering hilarious changes in American society.
Hey! Hey, bud. Get a cigarette?
Captain America, running away from badly dressed children for justice. Of course, it all comes to an end when Steve shows up back at his old house and finds that not only has Bernie aged, but that she's also moved on with her life, remarrying and having a kid named Sharon.
I was 38. I wanted to have children before it was too late.
You waited for me for 16 years?
But you said you'd wait forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and... Anyway, since he realizes that making out with his ex would not only be awkward but also gross, he wastes no time getting involved with her daughter. She checks out some VHS tapes from the local library to get Steve up to date.
It's all true. Everything you said was true.
No shit, Steve. What was your first clue? The fact that all the hair and clothing styles had changed? The fact that there wasn't a single model or make of car that you recognized? Or did you seriously think that the Nazis had set up an entire country just to fool you? Anyway, while Steve's out, the Red Skull's daughter / chief assassin plays a visit to Bernie's house, killing the editor and Bernie, and putting her father in the hospital. And on that somber note, Captain America vows to put a stop to the Red Skull's plan to kidnap the president no matter what.
Interrupt for this special report.
At approximately 11:49 Eastern Standard Time, the President of the United States was abducted from his hotel in Rome by a large group of unidentified terrorists.
Don't! Yep, that's right, they kidnapped the president entirely off-screen. Realizing that he might actually want to try and, stop the villain at some point, Captain America heads to the diner, which is now apparently civilian-owned. And not only that, apparently the military left every piece of research they could find, including the doctor's personal notes. Our tax dollars at work, folks. Before they can make much use of the info, though, a group of the Skull's killers break in, and there follows another very poorly lit action scene, mostly consisting of Steve hiding in the shadows. I'm not entirely sure what goes on down there, but since Steve and the girl are the ones who make it out, I'm going to assume that they won. Go team. Anyway, we cut to the president where he's being held in Italy, and it turns out that they've already removed the tracking device that he had implanted in him.
Oh no, a hidden transmitter. Does it look something like this? Painlessly removed from a lower right molar. This one, while you're unconscious. So easily deactivated. But don't worry, next time we'll have it made in Japan.
No, don't have it made in Japan! Steve will think he's a Nazi spy and steal his car! And speaking of Steve, he and the girl have found the Red Skull's hometown using the diary and...
Sharon, could you pull over for a minute? I think I'm gonna be sick.
Really, movie? Really? Captain America, abandoning his friends in a strange country with no way home, for freedom. Although I don't know why he'd bother since she catches up to him less than 5 minutes later. Anyway, they find an audio tape of the Red Skull's family being killed, then sit down for lunch at a local cafe, where the Red Skull's daughter once again proves herself to be the world's worst assassin.
Get down!
Ah, the classic attract your victim's attention before trying to take them by surprise maneuver. Lady, you make the talk to the Hitler maneuver from earlier look subtle by comparison. As you can guess, this results in another exciting sequence of Captain America running the fuck away from danger. Jesus, does Captain America ever actually stand up to evil in this movie? Captain America, taking to his heels in the face of oppression, for freedom. The only upside to the whole thing is that Sharon manages to openly state what I'm thinking about this whole wretched mess.
This sucks.
Thanks for the help, movie, but I think I'll be the one who does the commentary here. So the whole thing comes to an end when Captain Coward steals a kid's bike and drives them both into the water, only for he and Sharon to emerge miraculously dry not long after. As they continue on to the Red Skull's castle, Sharon locks the captain out of the car and speeds off because, hey, turnabout is fair play. She's almost immediately captured, and from there, it's up to Steve to rescue both her and the president. Or in other words, God help them both. Steve dons his by now rather battered Halloween outfit, but the president, perhaps realizing he's better off on his own, uses a jar of acid he's stolen from the Skull's lab to weaken the lock on his cell and break out. You mean that you searched him well enough to find a transmitter hidden in his tooth, but not well enough to find a jar of acid in his pocket? Smooth, Skull. Real smooth. What's really sad is that the president actually seems like a bigger badass in this movie than Captain America, even choosing to throw himself from a cliff rather than let the Red Skull use him against his own country. Fortunately, the captain saves him, and what follows is an action sequence where the president increasingly proves that he should have been the main character rather than Steve.
Wait on the North Shore. There's some caves there at the base of the cliff where you can hide. I'll come and get you when we get out.
What, are you kidding? I'm not bailing out on Captain America. Let's go.
President, the premises are secure, sir. I'm in command here.
General Fleming, I don't think you're going to be able to squirm out of this one.
Really?
Seriously, why the hell do we even need Captain America when we've got this guy? Hell, is it too late to make him Captain America instead? So awesome. Anyway, before I actually start enjoying this movie, it's time for the showdown between the Captain and the Skull. This time, the Captain comes out on top, although that should come as no surprise given that the Skull is at least 66 years old by now. Before his pacemaker can give out, though, the sextagenarian of doom reveals that he has a little insurance policy.
As far as megatons go, the device this is attached to may be small potatoes. But it's enough to ensure that all of Southern Europe will be off limits for, say, about a century and a half.
Skull? If your bomb is capable of vaporizing a goodly chunk of Italy and covering all of Southern Europe with radiation, then it is not, as we say, small potatoes. Anyway, the Captain uses the recording of his family's death to distract the Skull long enough to hit him with his shield, knocking him to his death. After that, he and Sharon walk away, never bothering to deactivate the bomb, so I guess it's safe to say that everyone is vaporized seconds after the fade-out. Captain America, letting everyone die! Because he's a dick! So that's it for Captain America. How bad is it? It's a train wreck. Although there are any number of things wrong with this movie, I'm just going to pick the worst one. How this movie treats the characters. First, let's take a look at Captain America himself. In the comics, the Captain is more or less the embodiment of all the qualities our nation was founded on: honesty, bravery, justice, and the desire to do the right thing no matter what the cost. In this movie, however, he spends his time either running away from danger, hiding from his enemies, or tricking people so he can steal their transportation, something that would never even occur to the Captain America of the comics. And let's not forget the Red Skull. Yeah, he's still evil in this movie, but just look at him. You obviously had the budget to do his makeup right in the first part of the movie, so why not keep doing it like that? And as for his change from a German Nazi to an Italian fascist, the only reason I can come up with is because they were shooting in Italy and wanted his nationality to match. To be honest, the only part of this movie I actually enjoyed was Ronny Cox as the president. In the end, I wish they'd just made the movie about his character, but then, who'd believe a movie about an ass-kicking president?
Get off my plane.
Well, that's all I've got this time. Time for you guys to go out and see the new Captain America movie. As for us here at the Agony Booth, we'll catch you next time on the Movie Skewer.
America.